Hi everybody, I'm Aaron Gilman, Chief Creative Officer at Steamroller Animation. We're so excited to be part of Animex this year. This has been an incredible venue for us in the past where we get to share our passion for animation and tell the world about all the cool things that we do. Now before we jump into our panel about the challenges of developing IP, I'd like to tell you a little bit about who Steamroller Animation is. We're a growing studio located near Orlando, Florida that serves clients all over the globe with character, facial, and creature animation support. We've gotten to work on some of the biggest games in the industry, most recently Horizon Forbidden West, Fortnite, Mortal Kombat, and many more. We've also been part of some amazing major motion pictures. We pride ourselves in providing high-end animation for cinematics, film, and video games. So on the one hand, we have this awesome service side of our business where we get to work with our incredible partners to execute their vision. But we also love to tell our own stories. What you're about to see is a roundtable interview I did with some of our senior creatives about the complexities and challenges we've experienced with developing our own IP, in this case a project called Spice Frontier. Spice Frontier, which is now in production at Steamroller, is an amazingly fun science fiction adventure that takes place centuries after the destruction of Earth. Kent Williams and his cyborg companion Sela board the Serrano on an intergalactic, flavor-driven adventure to find the last remaining Earth spices. It's a lot of fun, it's going to be beautiful. So before we start, here's a sneak peek of Spice Frontier, followed by our discussion on creating our own IP and the challenges therein. I really hope you enjoy it, and thank you so much for being part of our conversation today. So I think the first thing that we could probably do is have everybody introduce themselves so we can know a little bit more about who you guys are. So we'll start with Jalil Sadool.
Hey everybody, so I'm Jalil. I'm the CEO/animation director here at Steamroller Studios and one of the owners as well.
Hi, I'm Ben Rische. I'm the head of story and a creative supervisor here at Steamroller Studios.
Hey guys, I am Adam Meyer. I'm also a co-owner and art director here at Steamroller Studios.
So I think what I want to do today is look, we have a number of IP projects that are in play. But Spice Frontier is really what I think we should focus on, just to try and contextualize a lot of the discussion points that we're going to be having. So we're going to be honing in on that a little bit more closely. So, Spice Frontier has a real history of development at the studio. So I'd like to talk a little bit first about that. And maybe we can start with you guys, Jalil and Adam, and you can tell us a little bit about where did this project come from? What is Spice Frontier exactly? And what was its sort of, initial incarnation at Steamroller?
Oh man, well, if we're going all the way back to the beginning, we got to go all the way to the beginning, which was in the back of a t-shirt shop. Yeah. I think at the time we still were kind of operating under this idea that we would take turns for intellectual properties.
Oh my God, that's right. We take turns to direct.
Yeah. So the first one was a little game called Super Shock Football. It was Keith's idea, and that was, I think we worked on it for like a year, and one of the original iPhone games. And then Deadwood, was kind of my thing, and not knowing, by the way, it would take 12 years to get. Good thing we didn't stick with this plan, otherwise we'd never get anywhere. But Jalil was already thinking kind of what's the next thing after this. And, I remember for me, he came to me one morning and said, I had this idea for a game, right? We were still a game studio at the time. We weren't an animation studio. And it was this idea that there was this kind of space chef who was, seeking these ingredients in this universe. And I remember him just that little bit hooked me immediately. I was like, this is such a unique idea, something I've never heard of. And that was kind of the beginning of it, is starting out as a video game, actually.
Whose idea was the project? Where did the actual idea around spice come from?
So that was an idea that I had to make a game out of it, because I felt having a chef in a spaceship traveling around the universe looking for ingredients, the ingredients could be what you're looking for in the game, and each level is a different ingredient. Each level is a different boss. So that's how it kind of started. Yeah, the idea started as a game, and it's Adam. I don't know. Adam wants to continue that story of how we moved into a short film.
Jumping ahead a little bit. I think we were probably about 40 people at the time, of which I think about 25, more than half, were animators, and we were plugging along, making our game, really starting to establish ourselves in the service industry. I think I just kind of looked around one day and was like, man, we got a lot of animators here. Why are we making a game? We should be making a short film. Keep in mind, I'm not from this industry. I don't have Keith and Jalil's expertise and seeing firsthand the frustration, how difficult it can be to make a short film at a studio. So I kind of went in, stars in my eyes, dreaming of like, hey, let's just make a short film. It won't, no big deal. Half joking about it, which most of my ideas, I'm only half joking. I'm just kind of how I deliver it. But I think Jalil and Keith probably both laughed initially, but I know Jalil went off that weekend and started giving it some real thought and thinking maybe there was something we could do there.
The Jalil brainstorm, the weekend brainstorm that he was famous for, that I love him for so much, ultimately made him realize that while he had the idea for the concept, ultimately the format came from you, Adam. And I guess Jalil realized, bing, that's what we should do.
I mean, as company owners, the three of us at that time, it was only three of us. Phil had not joined us at that point. There's this mindset of you put your head down and you work really hard, and I knew we were making a video game, so I was not going to let myself get distracted by making a short film. And Keith and I, having been in bigger studios where we've seen short films fail from bigger studios and how difficult it is to do it, when Adam said it, we both looked at him and said, "Oh, sweetie, you don't know how much time it takes to do this." But when I went home, I realized Adam was on the other end of the spectrum, and we were on the opposite end, where we were so jaded by studios failing to do it that I was worried. But that risk-taking side of Adam made me sit down that one evening and go, but what if we actually do something? And I said, I could take Spice Frontier, the idea, and write a short film out of it, kind of a moment in the world of Spice Frontier. We didn't want to make a short, and I remember coming to Adam and I said, Adam, if we are going to do a short, it's not going to be an Oscar-winning short. It's not going to be a short that makes any sense to anybody. It's not going to make any short. It's not going to be a short with a story from a start to finish. It's not going to be any of that. It's going to showcase what we can do as a studio. It doesn't have to be shown anywhere. It's not going to go to festival. It's not going to win anything. I said, if you agree to this, I'm going to do it, because I know how difficult it is when you're chasing awards and how it muddies the story and how you destroy, characters because you're trying to please an audience. I said, I want to please us, that we are going to do something that's valuable. We can show our talent. And Adam was like, dude, I'm in. And that same Sunday, I think I wrote the script and called him and said, come over. And he drove over to my house. I still remember I was kneeling down on the floor and he was sitting on the couch And I was like, ready? He goes, I'm ready. And I wrote 8 pages. It was a short film. And I read it to him. And he looked at me. He goes, dude, we have something here. We got to do this. I'm like, we have to, but we have to convince Keith. Because Keith is still in laughing zone of, come on, kids. It's not going to work. So what I did is I said, Adam, we just need to do it ourselves. We just need to do it in our own time and prove to Keith that it's going to work. So what I did is Adam and I think it was the Monday or the Tuesday after, we pulled Keith aside and said, Keith, we have an idea. He goes, come on, guys, we need to finish Deadwood. I said, no, but there's something here. What if Adam and I work on it on our own time at home? He goes, as long as this does not affect your work here on Deadwood, I'm totally cool with whatever you guys do. So I told Adam, I said, I'm going to do the animatic. So I pretty much found free assets, free rigs, and I built the animatic, all 8 minutes of it on my own every evening. I'm sure we can share this, as well. I'm sure he's probably playing right now if with proper editing.
So wait, can I ask you, how long did it take for you to do this animatic? You're running a studio. Okay, you're owning a company where you have a whole thing that you're doing, plus who knows how many other thousands of things you're juggling.
Yeah.
And yet you're going home every night and you're working on this animatic yourself?
Absolutely. What I was doing was, we were running 3 projects at that time. Was Dauntless, Rand, and I think it was Fortnite, the first cinematic we did. And so I was animation director on all 3 of them. So that was my daily. My days were pretty much, taken by, overseeing, these projects. Luckily, we had, incredible supervisors in Josiah, Chris Morgan, Josiah Massing, and Amanda Renfro, all 3 of them leading these projects. It took a lot of that pressure off me. And after, I gave myself a deadline, though, 1 month. So I would go to bed at 3 a.m. every day. And after 1 month, I called Adam and we sat down, we watched it, and we were like, we're ready to show it to Keith.
Wow.
So we invited him over to my place. We had wine, cheese. We actually suited up. I remember wearing a... and we invited him. He came over and he opened the door. We opened the door. He's like, oh, come on, guys. We sat down. We had wine and cheese. We gave him, a couple glasses. And he was like, come on, let's just play. Let's play. It was on the big screen at my house. And then we played it. The whole time, Adam and I were just watching him. So Keith watched it. And I remember the first time he laughed about it. And he's like, can you pause real quick? And then I paused. And that was the moment where Kent took a deep breath when it started and couldn't breathe. And he's like, I like this. And we were like, he likes this. He likes this. And then he watched the whole thing. And at the end, he turned to us. He said, all right, when do we start? That was a true story. He turned to us and said, yeah, when do we start? He goes, but I'd love to know how we're going to pay for this.
So let's talk a little bit about, how did you actually get this thing off the ground? Like, how did you actually go into production on this? How many people were involved? Did you build a pipeline for it? Like, let's just talk about the actual execution of the 8-minute short for Spice Frontier.
It started really, like we said, with Jalil, right? And just kind of, it was almost like, we had this club, started with Jalil. He brought me in, we brought Keith in, and then we just started, kind of going through the studio in the beginning and just picking out like, hey, Tad, he'd be really good. Maybe we can get him to work on some concepts, right? And so really just kind of started that way. It was just bootstrapping. We knew what needed to be done to kind of get the short done, but we didn't really know how we were going to go about doing it. So it was very much like, who do we think could do which tasks, and that's kind of how it started. We did eventually, Jalil could speak more into how we did formalize it, and we got to a point where we came up with clear budgets for particular shots, right? Like we would go through and say, all right, we have these shots that we know we need animated. We got 25 animators here. We opened it up to the whole company and said, hey, who wants to work on it? Keep in mind, this is what we pay per shot, and then you have to do it on your own time because we were still, we have to make money. We got to pay the bills.
Yeah.
So we had a group of about 10 that came in and were like, yeah, I want to get in on this. And I know Jalil reached out to his contacts as well in the animation world and got all kinds of people to kind of come in and help out. And I think just the structure kind of came later, but really it was the excitement of just, we're going to do our own thing and get people involved that way first.
Yeah, I remember I was telling Josiah, hey, do you want to be layout supervisor? It was like throwing titles. What do you want to be? I mean, it was very much that, we had a couple super talented artists, Kim Louie as
Right.
well was here, and Kim was like pretty much through the whole pipeline. She was handling the layout side, she was handling the camera side, she was handling some animation as well, and compositing as well. There was quite a bit that she was doing, and Katie and Tad super involved in the modeling side, the design side, but then also the background painting side. Everybody was wearing many hats. We didn't have a pipeline. Tabitha, who was our production on it, was saving files on wherever, and then everybody needed to tell them where the files were. We were very much bootstrapping this to get through it. And so what we did is we bidded the shots out to go, okay, these shots, we can only afford that much money. So then we would open it up to the animators and say, hey guys, we've got these shots. That's how much we can pay for each of them. It has to be outside of work hours. We can only pay that much. And a lot of the animators were excited just to have the opportunity to work on it. And luckily we were pretty good with the bids. We had good bids. We were trained with our partners to kind of bid it out how long it would take to do these shots. But we couldn't just fund the project daily and spend the time of the animators where we should be spending on client work to bring in money.
Of course.
And I think it was a very creative balance between making some money, saving it, investing it back in the evenings into the short film.
Well, I mean, yeah, it makes perfect sense. Your profit margin on the project side is so small, but you have this passion and this dream to make something, and you really just need passionate people to sort of jump on the bandwagon so that you can pay them a nominal amount. So you're not, paying them nothing, obviously, but ultimately it's about sort of the pursuit for storytelling, right? I mean, that's really the essence of it, and you're willing to make sacrifices in order to do that. So let me understand this. So the short gets done. How long did that take? And what do you do with it once it's done? You've got this thing. What was the timeline for delivering it? And then what do you do with it? Like, do you just put it in your back pocket and go, hey, we made a short, we'll keep it to ourselves and it's really fun and we'll show it to the team every now and again? Or do you use it for a strategic advantage of some kind? And talk a little bit about the mindset around that.
Yeah, so the goal was always to make the short film show what we can do. And I think as we were getting to the end of the short film, we realized, Adam and I were discussing, man, I think it's looking super cool. Maybe we could put it in festivals. It happened way after, because when you look at it, you're like, oh, what an opportunity missed if we don't show it to the world, right? And the best way for it to work is if we go through the festival circuit. So, but it didn't have a beginning. When the ship flies into the scene, it didn't have that. It actually started when Kent walks into the spaceship. Right. So we were like, okay, well, we can't release this to the world without a little bit of context, a little bit more where they are at. So we backwards engineer this first scene when the ship comes in and they are in the ship and all that stuff to make it work. So that was a post, thought. So the idea when the short was done, it was very much, let's show it to the world. So we went to the festival circuit. We actually won quite a few of them, and it went through a lot of festivals, and it was very exciting. And we actually won Dragon Con, which was super cool. Actually, T2 was there and accepted the award, and it was one of the things I was telling him. I was like, we were not chasing any of that stuff, but it just was happening because people were reacting to the characters and the passion that was in there. And it gave us belief and confidence at that point. It gave us the belief that there is something there that if we develop it, it will get bigger. And I think that was the time where I was like, I need to invest time in this. Now I started working on the book at that point. With Chris Porter, one of our writers, and starting to develop the world of Spice Frontier, because, I wanted, at that point, we had already made the decision, this is a TV series. The way this is being written right now is definitely a TV series. And so that's how it started. Now, the short, keep in mind, the short came out, everybody saw it. We started getting a lot of executives from streaming companies reaching out to us, saying, hey, we really like this. This feels like it's a TV show, and we would love you to bring this up, to us. And the issue was that there was a lot of notes already coming our way. We will need to change this and change this, you know. So for us, for me, it was too soon. I was still building the world. The changes were too big that affects, for example, Kent's age was in question. Kent's age needs to be much younger to fit a younger audience. But what happened is, since I was still in the evolution of the story, I felt like it was compromising the integrity of the characters too early. If I make a change of his age, it affects the whole story moving forward. I said, maybe I want to tell the story I want to tell first. And if people don't like it for any reason, then we'll pivot at that point to make it better. But right now, I'm preemptively getting notes from people that don't understand the world yet. So we decided to hold off from pitching it.
Yeah, can I stop you there, though? Because, like, you know, I know a lot of people that are script writers or screenplay writers, and they are actively they work with agents, they have meetings with executives, they're actively searching for people that want to buy their content or invest in their content. With that investment at the screenplay level comes a ton of notes, right? The studio has their own agenda. They've got a demographic they want to appeal to. They've done all the charts and the measurements of who's going to want to watch what. And so the notes begin. You had executives coming to you saying, we love Spice Frontier. Here's some notes, but we want to go in on this with you. Why do you say no to that? Most people would not.
Yeah, and I think, again, you know, a lot of the notes are valid. You know, most of the notes are valid. The notes are correct. The notes are right. You know, a lot of these execs have been doing these jobs for a long time. They know their demographic. They know the people that's going to watch their project. But I think the difference here is we have a company. You know, we have a company that can create content, and most distributing companies or most distributors, most streamers out there are looking for content. So I knew it was too soon for us to give up our IP. You know, usually when you go and pitch an idea, you have a script, you want to get your movie done, you have no ability to make the film. So you end up selling the story, and the story gets changed 40%, 60% to get approved by an audience. I didn't feel we were there yet as Steamroller Studios. I felt this is our baby. Let's tell it the way we want to tell it. If the world loves it, hey, we did it. If the world is not ready for it, then we have to make changes. You know, we have our heads on our shoulders. You know, we've been in this business for a while. We'll know if it fails, we got to pivot. But I knew we were the best team to pivot if we needed to.
You know, the fact that you own a content creation service ultimately allows you to take control of that storytelling process and not necessarily just sell out to it, which is fantastic. Obviously, it gives the studio an enormous amount of power. I was going to say, so with the short, what were the advantages to Steamroller? I mean, you know, sure, there's the award circuit, festival circuit, and all of that. But, and maybe Adam, you can talk about that as well, which is, what did it do for us as a studio? What were the benefits of releasing this thing?
Well, when we started and we finally got our budget together and we said, this is what we're going to spend on it. It was actually, I still think, less than what you would normally spend on advertising. So definitely the creative part of it was what was driving the show. But in the back of our minds, we knew, hey, this was something that at the very least, we're going to come out, showcase our abilities, and hopefully that would be a good marketing tool that we could use out there to maybe bring in some new clients, you know, show a different part of the pipeline that we haven't typically offered to other, you know, clients. So that was kind of in our minds. As long as we can get some good advertising out of it, then it's going to be a success, right?
Yeah, and so did we get new clients as a result of this?
I know after we released, we were just getting message after message from you know, people we knew, but also, you know, new clients as well that were just coming out of the woodwork. And
it was the same time when a game we were working on called Destruction All Stars. We were doing all of the in-game animation, and I had a good conversation with the company owner, and he said, when I saw Spice Frontier, I said, you guys are the team to make the cinematics. And he was able to pitch us to Sony and get us the cinematic contracts. And he picked out a very specific, scene in Spice Frontier. He said, when Kent walked by that door and he spun around and come down.
That's one of my favorite shots.
Yeah, he goes, he took a pause and he goes, the amount of personality in just that moment. He goes, I want that team to do our cinematics.
Yeah.
So we landed a really nice contract to do all of the cinematics for Destruction All Stars based on the short. And honestly, it's been kind of a revelation, an eye opener for us that, you know, you showcase what you can do, and as long as you keep doing good work, projects will keep coming.
So it's interesting because that I guess is proof of the symbiotic relationship that can happen within a business where you have a service-based vehicle and you have an enormous amount of extremely talented people under your roof that are ultimately feeding this creative-based vehicle. And so you go out of pocket really for Spice Frontier, you make a short, and suddenly people come. And that's now generating more revenue for the studio for you to tell more stories, which is incredible. So that's my next question, which is going to get us right into the present. So, you know, you've done the short, you see a passion or an animated TV series that could potentially propel this idea into the future. What are we doing with Spice Frontier right now? Why haven't we moved on? Why are we committing to this project from an IP standpoint?
Yeah, I think, you know, part of it is that the passion you're talking about. You know, I think what we've noticed is, you know, if you've, you know, a lot of us who's worked in bigger studios, we've seen how difficult it is to get a short film done, how difficult it is to get original IP done. You know, there's very few big studios that are doing it, but there are a lot of companies that do service, you know, the VFX industry, for example. I know a lot of the VFX studios today would want to do their own IP, but unfortunately they're not able to because, first of all, you know, they do offer higher rates, you know, and they are all stuck in this loop of bringing project and continuing to bring project, and they're stuck in that loop. It's difficult financially, especially if you have investors, if you have shareholders in the company, to be able to say, I'm going to carve out this amount of money, and they'll tell you, wait, hold on, where do we get our bonuses? Where do we get our high rates? How do we do it? So what you end up having is companies that are always in that vicious cycle of surviving, doing a big project, surviving, doing a client project. And so there are very few companies that take the risk of going, listen, we can't afford higher rates at the moment, but because we have a vision, we are trying to reach a point where we can flip the coin, and instead of being content chasers, we are content creators. The moment that coin is flipped, that's when the big money comes in, because people are going, I want you guys to create me a feature film, then we can bump up our rates. And it's something that's difficult to explain because, you know, unless you're in it and you're seeing it every day. So, you know, we will have, you know, a team that will stick with us through the dark times until we're able to get out of it. But there's some people that will go on different adventures and then probably come back later, right? So it is a tricky thing, but it's as long as you're creative, we've have you maneuver around the industry of, for us, we chose, hey, listen, we are in Florida. The cost of living here is lower, so we can't afford, you know, higher rates, but every penny we make, instead of it going in the investors' pockets, which is Adam, myself, you, Aaron, and a couple other owners, we decide we're going to spin this around and invest it in projects, because eventually these projects are going to bring us, you know, a lot more that later we can share with, you know, more with.
I'm so happy that we're talking about this, because I think that is a big mystery for a lot of people.
It is. It's a dark art.
It is, and I think a lot of employees who are sort of, you know, doing the work on the shots in whatever field they're in, they don't necessarily understand the complexities of the business side of how to develop this stuff. Now, when I was on the visual effects side of the industry, we used to all sit around going, why aren't we making our own films? Why aren't we making our own shorts? We have this massive infrastructure, these incredible rendering tools and lighting tools and animation rigs, and yet we're always just service. And it was only when I got to Steamroller and started working with Jalil and Adam that I started to realize the flip side of it, which is not only why it's a problem on the visual effects side, but also there is a tipping point on the creative content development side where if you're willing, it's almost like, Jalil, you and I have talked about this, it's almost like, you know, you're on a main ship and then you jump in the dinghy and you kind of paddle out to no man's land. Yeah. And you go out far enough and it's just fog and you're like, where are we going? But there is a point where the fog clears and you realize, no, we're now recognized for our storytelling. And as a result of that, they will come. And with that will come the money where we can bring everybody up and we can start to be recognized for that.
I remember having conversations with quite a few, animators there saying, we should be making our own animated films, but if, let's say the owner came to me and said, hey, Jalil, take a pay cut. I'll take a pay cut as well. We'll take that money, we'll put that in the pool and we'll make a film. I think I would have been like, take a pay cut? Okay.
Yeah.
But I've got my life, makes sense. I would probably say, no, I can't do that. So that's the give and take, right? But if let's say the owner said, take a pay cut now, but 5 years from now, you'll be able to get a better raise. I'll probably say 5 years from now, I don't care. I'll go to another company while I get what I want, right? So there's that to play with. Us as company owners, we have to take these risks sometimes, right?
We're in that sweet spot, right?
The sweet spot,
yeah. We're not too big.
And I was just going to say, and I'll move on to the next question. I just find this really, really interesting and exciting for me. As a result of if you find people, Jalil, that have that mentality where they do go, yeah, I'll take that cut. I want to do this with us. Right? I want to be in charge. I don't want notes from halfway across the world from someone I don't know. What happens is you're creating a culture around that mentality. That is a certain type of company that is very different from other types of company, which is this idea, like you said, of bootstrapping, of feet on the ground, of collaboration and really being involved in cutting edge stuff. And I think that you, by investing in that psychology, you attract a certain type of people, which creates a very unique place to work, which I think Steamroller has, which is really, really awesome.
I'll just transition to Ben here real quick, but and then you tell me, Aaron, if you want to continue with that thought. When we were doing Spice, there was a lack of. I felt my skill level in the animatic lacked energy, and I felt, I did talk to a few of my friends from the third floor. These guys are previs masters, right? And, when they saw what I did, they were like, the camera could have been a little more dynamic here and here and here, I was like, yeah, I know, but this is the extent of my knowledge when it comes, to filmmaking. So I remember about 2 years ago, Josiah mentioned to me that, one of his good friends is becoming available. And I'm like, who's that? He goes, Ben, and I was like, can you send me his work? And when he showed me what Ben was involved, I was like, we got to bring him now. Like, how do we do this? Like, I want Ben here because the moment I saw Ben's work, I was like, he is the future for us in pushing the skill level that I felt we didn't have, So hence, Ben joining. So let's take over, Aaron.
Yeah, I don't know if this was clear to our viewers earlier, but we're developing now episode 1, as I understand it, of Spice Frontier, which is a 28-minute episode. So 3 times longer than the short. I guess. Probably the best way to start here, Ben, is what exactly is your focus on this project right now? Let's talk about kind of what you're doing to get this thing off the ground with Jalil and Adam.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing was, originally this whole script and making the first episode was all hush hush between us, and having us be, and having it, being done behind the scenes and all that stuff. And in a lot of ways, just because, we had to in a lot of ways. And so I started with the boards and, Jalil and I were just kind of working together on it, making it work, getting things going with it. And I mean, it was here and there, it was kind of, I was on it and then I was off of it, on it, off in it. And then we finally got the first thumbnail pass done and, it worked. which I wasn't expecting it to.
So what's exciting here was from script to boards, and maybe Ben, you can elaborate on that, because there's a lot of things you do in the script, and myself I do visualize my scenes when I'm writing them, but it's incredible to visualize a scene and loving it in my head, putting it on paper, and then have Ben completely do the opposite, but it still works. Like, Ben would take it and put his own twist to it. I don't know, Ben, if can you talk about that process of, because I think I ran you through the story, but
Yes,
I don't think I gave you visual exactly what was in my mind, correct?
That was actually one of my next questions, which is to talk about that visualization process of translating from written word to these initial sort of thumbnails, animatic storyboards.
Yeah, and so basically when we started this, so Jalil and I sat down with the script. We talked through it. He went through it all. He explained to me everything that he was seeing, throughout all the scenes and the sequences, kind of telling me the overarching, point of all the different sequences as well, and how they kind of come together, and a little bit of what happens afterwards. And then after that, I mean, basically, I just took the script. I read through it again. I read through it a bunch of times, actually, just to make sure I got it all in my mind. It's kind of the same way as how I animate, where I have to see it all in my mind first before I can actually start. So when I was reading through the script, in some places I actually am reading through it and I already see the scene. So I just start thumbnailing on the side of the script and just making some shot notes or different things like that. I've tried in the past to try and do like shot lists and all that stuff, but I find that it's too rigid for me. Mm-hmm. And so I just go in and just intuitively kind of just start making shots. And obviously there are some places where I run into a problem and I have to lay it out, or I have to kind of break it down into a shot list to make sure it makes sense and stuff. But most of the time, and especially with the script that Jalil wrote, it was like, all right, I know exactly what I need to do, and it was already very clear in my head about how it all worked. And there were places, obviously, Jalil and I talked about to make the flow better and different things like that. And that just kind of comes with doing the edit and all that. But it was just a really fun time to be able to start doing that.
How much collaboration is there, Ben? I've worked with, dozens of different directors who all have different ways of doing things. Do not mess with my idea. It's exactly right versus, I don't know. What do you think? So working with Jalil, like, what is that creative process like? Is it collaborative? Are you able to sort of throw out ideas and offer pitches, or is it very much follow the script? Like, what's the general vibe there?
I feel like Jalil and I worked really, really well together. I mean, it's just, he trusts me to kind of make decisions for myself, as far as certain things. But when we went over the script and as we go through it, he pinpoints the things that need to be stuck. Like, it's like, okay, these are the things that need to stay. And so really working around those kinds of story points and making sure everything hits those points. And then in between that, having some fun, adding some little things in that wasn't necessarily in the script, but just could make it just a little bit fresher, a little bit more, a lot of the action sequences were kind of just written out very plainly, and simply to tell me what exactly needs to happen. And then it's like, all right, well, let's make this cool, and then I just go in there and I just try out some things, and then I pitch it and see what Jalil thinks, and we go from there. So
I also want to give a shout out to Chris Porter as well, who was super helpful on helping me with the script. Again, I work very similarly, with Chris on the script, similarly to Ben, where I've got the beats and the timing of when things need to happen, especially because I do live the performance in my head, where I get the acting and so there are beats in performance that I want to hit jokes and stuff. So, but I give him these pinpoints, but then I tell Chris, you can be free around this area, come up with a few things that they could say.
I think that workflow and that relationship is kind of essential to the studio. Like I was talking about the culture of storytelling, right? And the type of people you want to attract.
Yes.
If you treat every employee the same way I might treat the contractor working in my house or the plumber or the guy laying down the hardwood, then it's not the same kind of relationship. And it's different when we're working for a director sitting far away in a studio. We are paid to execute his vision. Whereas what we're doing is we're working collaboratively as a team to make something cool. So you have to have that mindset, right? You got to let Ben go. You color between the lines, man. Here's the lines, but you do you. And because that's why I hired you. That's why
That's the reason he's here. Yeah.
That's really great.
Now, I also love him. So
we all love it
for that.
And Ben, I was going to ask a little bit about like the more technical aspect of your approach. Now you have an animation background though, because I've seen your reel, and your reel is amazing. And you're also a great artist. So is it a constant synthesis of those two things in order for you to be able to work at this level with Jalil at this part of the process?
Yeah, I mean, in my background, I started out in CG animation and 2D animation, and so I think about performance in a lot of ways first, just from my background, and I think about the characters really in depth because of that. And so when I started going into storyboarding and more character design stuff, I had to break out of the mindset of a shot production, where it's just one shot. I had to think about, and it was a really hard transfer for me to go from shots to sequences and then to a whole overarching story. And so I am so thankful for all the different things that I learned how to do, because all those things add together into being able to, because storyboarding literally is everything in one thing. It's character design, it's composition, it's, story, it's performance, it's animation. And that's why I love it so much, is that it's literally puts together everything I've ever learned into one thing. And then in really just being able to be a little mini director is always fun as well. I always enjoy, I just really enjoy just bringing the script to a screen and just being able to bring the vision to life for the director and all that.
What's your favorite aspect to working on Spice Frontier specifically? Like what kind of drives your creative joy on that project? Is it the character design, or is it the way the story arcs are changing? Like what's your creative juice towards that project?
Man, it's hard. It's just everything, honestly. I love the performances. I love the animation side of it. Even though I'm not doing animation as much anymore, I still enjoy that side of it. But the characters, when I read through the script, after watching, after going through the short and then reading through the script and reading through and seeing these characters interact with each other, and then getting to see the character designs that were done and being able to help with kind of, refining them and different things like that. I instantly knew how all these characters emoted in a lot of ways. Like I instantly knew who they were, and in a weird way. And so it hasn't happened yet all the way, but I'm super, super duper excited to, get the boards in cleaner, but also being able to work on the character designs, getting to work on the expressions, getting to work on everything going forward to animation. Because like I said, I already see them emoting, and I want to just put it down on paper and have people see what how I see them in my head, and hopefully, we all kind of think it all looks the same, in our heads. But yeah, it's going to be cool.
I want to add to this as well, and I think it's one thing that a lot of people miss. And you call yourself a director, but to me, when I can't take credit for Spice Frontier. For me, it started as an idea, but when you look at the final product, it looks so much better than what I had in my head. It's an incredible amalgamation of everybody here to get this to where it is. As a director, I would call myself more of a guy. I'm a guide. Yeah. I just won't let you fall in a hole, but you wouldn't fall in that hole anyways because you're talented enough, to get there. So for me, really the short film and how we want to run. This is really how the company is run. It's very much who we are. We're not about let's do it exactly this way. We love to let's try something new, and if it breaks, we'll pivot and come back. We'll learn, we'll explore, we'll experiment, and Spice is that way. And I feel the way the short turned out was exciting when I look at it. I love watching it because if I knew exactly what it would turn like, or I was very strict about it, I'm pretty sure I'd be bored with it when it was done.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it was the exploration of watching Tad design the characters, Kim putting the effects, Josh doing it, Katie's models. You know, it was just incredible watching everybody come together and make this thing. And at the end, I sit down, I'm like, we made this.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because I'm sure I've mentioned that to you, Jalil, as well in the past. But I always, as an animation supervisor or animation director, I always thought of myself. I always thought of the metaphor of the superhero and the sidekick, where I'm the sidekick and the artist is the superhero. So, you know, if you think of Batman and Robin, Robin's job is to go, watch out, Batman, you know, and steer him out of danger. But ultimately, he's the hero because he's the one executing the work effectively. So I love that aspect.
We're all Robins.
We're all Robins, exactly. So let's talk about the next step. So we're doing this first episode. Is this more of the wearing many hats, beg, borrow, and steal to get it done type of thing, Jalil, where we have people working on projects, but we're sort of siphoning off time from them in order to help us? And is it going to be slow going because it's kind of piecemeal being put together that way?
We are halfway there. So you know, we as a company ourselves, you know, we are very cautious. It's very calculated risks, right? We are not about. A lot of companies have tried this, where they divert all their resources into IP, and the IP fails and the company sinks. You know, we are not that way. Adam, myself, Keith, have been very, very careful, and Aaron, you think the same way as well. So, you know, we are very much about calculated risk. When we started Steamroller and we started bringing in work, we actually did these very 2D cinematics for Worms, for the Worms game. And it gave us confidence that, hey, we can do something looking 2D and using After Effects. So we took on a second project that was called, it was a company called Alliance for Kids. We were doing this little animated short for them. And it gave us a bit more confidence to do that one. It was about 2 minutes long. And then we decided, oh my God, this is possible. That gave us the courage to do the short film 8 Minute Spice Frontier. And after Spice Frontier, we got the courage to do Master, which was pushing the boundaries a bit of what we could do on Spice Frontier. And let's make the look a little bit more mature. We did it. And after Master, now we've got the confidence to do 28 minutes of Spice Frontier. So the different part here is that we are not going to be bootstrapping it as much as we did the short. Now we actually have a proper budget for it because, again, I think Adam, you know, can attest to this, you know, can talk a bit more about it. But Deadwood finishing, we couldn't invest in two IPs at the same time, something that big especially. So we wanted to wait for Deadwood, you know, to be over. And the moment Deadwood is over, now we can divert some of that funds, you know, into, it either goes into the investors' pockets, but that's not who we are. You know, we are all about, you know, keep investing and keep making creative, cool stuff. So that's why now we are able to invest that money back into, you know, into Spice Frontier and move forward with it. But that said, though, we don't intend to fund a whole 10 episode season. We're looking at a mega budget here that will be difficult to do, and it might take us too long to get there. Is it possible to do? Yes, as a studio, we do our own thing. But it will take time. But right now, what the goal is, just like we've always been, calculated risk. We are committing to the first episode. We believe that we create something like this. It's not the short film anymore. Now you get to see the ensemble of all the characters. This is true Spice Frontier we are about to do here. The short film was a proof of concept. Can we make it look cool? This is really, can we make the characters come to life and their relationship and the world of Spice Frontier? These 28 minutes teaches us, can we do more? But also it shows to the world, like Adam and I talk about that, we want to make the industry an offer they can't refuse. We want the streamers to come to us and say, we want this. So as long as we got our heads on our shoulders, we commit to this one episode financially, I think we should be okay.
So is that the idea strategically, which is we do that first episode and then the studios will come and is the goal to find an investment partner or maybe even more than one investment partner so that we could ultimately kick off the series and be sort of the sole vendor for developing this project?
Yeah, it's definitely a bridge we will cross, because when we get to that bridge, the landscape of Steamroller could be different. We could find ourselves going, hey, we can fund this whole thing ourselves. Because what's happening when the short came out, we were getting interest. We knew this thing was real. We could tell people wanted it. They will change it to make it their own, of course, but they want it. So that was step one. When we do this episode, we feel we've got something there. We believe in this IP. We know they will come at that point. So then I think the negotiations will come into, do we give it up? How much of it do we give? For how much money? Can we invest if a distributor comes in and says, we want to invest that much in it, or we want to buy the whole series with you? Our question back would be, how much of the IP do you want? Right. And then we will decide how much are we willing to give. That's right. It might be a matter of us deciding, you know what? They want it, so we know we'll be able to sell it, but maybe we don't want to give as much. So these negotiations, I think, will happen when we get there. I think I'm always open to these discussions when we get there. But at the moment, I think we are not set on exactly what's going to happen. We are absolutely building something we believe in, and we believe the industry will want it.
What is the timeline for this episode? And can people at Steamroller expect to find themselves working on it? Maybe not everybody, obviously. We're over 150 people at this stage, but tell us a little bit about when you expect to deliver this.
So we are currently working. We just got approved the budget, so we're currently right now working on that schedule. We're going to have a schedule here within actually Josh Carroll, who will be a creative director on Spice Frontier. He's currently working on that schedule, so I don't quite have the deadlines for it, but we will have milestone based. Now, our budget is fully approved for the pre-production. Our budget is fully approved for the production itself. It will be a slower grind because, of course, we can't just throw all of our resources on it. We have to be, again, careful about it. I can say, yes, quite a few of our animators will get a chance to work on it. But again, we don't know yet where we're at,
Not just animation, right? I mean, we're a one-stop shop for this. So we're lighting it. We're
modeling, rigging, lighting. Yeah, absolutely. That it will. I think when it comes to pass the layout side of the pipeline, I think this is when we will have to make sure the schedule works well for our team on client projects and partner projects.
That brings me to one final question before I thank you guys for an incredible roundtable discussion, which is if Spice Frontier were to get developed as a TV series and we did bring in some investors and maybe Master is next and it gets off the ground and we start to really see this evolution of Steamroller as a storytelling content creation facility, do you foresee a future where the service side of the business would diminish? And if so, would that ever diminish entirely, or will we always have that?
That's the dark art part of this question, right? I think Adam, myself, and Keith, and of course you as well, Aaron, we've agreed that we would never let go our partnership team and our relationship with our clients, because it's the engine of the studio. And there's the creative side where we are doing the Spice Frontier. We keep more power in our hands if we can fund our own projects. The less investors you bring on board, the less people you're under people's thumb, the less people breathing down your neck, the less creative freedom you're giving up if you can fund it yourself. So we are going to be creative about it. I'm not saying we won't have to bring some investors at some point for pushes. Sometimes you got a milestone to push a project, you bring some investment in, but we have to be creative about it. I can tell you guys right now, our brand of what we do is animation. And I think we will never lose our partners. And we love this because how exciting is it in a year? Let's say every 3 years we release a film, or every 2 years we release a TV show. But every year we've worked on 5-6 projects that the team can be proud of when it gets released. You see at games awards, we got a game in there. It's always exciting. So we love that, and I don't think we'll ever lose that. And Aaron, the reason you're here today is to make sure the engine is healthy and as we go into the future. And so to answer the question today, I don't think we'll ever lose the engine. I think the engine will probably get smaller or bigger at certain times. We might be able to be flexible with it.
So I think with that, we'll probably end this, but I did want to go to Ben and Adam, and if you guys had any last comments. Obviously, I'm incredibly excited about the work that you're doing on Spice Frontier. I can't wait to see the first sort of animatic pass, Ben, that you've been working on with Jalil. Did you guys have anything that you wanted to say before we wrap up?
I mean, we're just, I think, super excited to get going on it. I mean, I had a conversation with Jalil right before this and was like, I'm ready to get going. We started this company because we wanted to tell our own stories. And so for me personally, the opportunity to come back to one of our IPs like this and work on it and contribute, I couldn't be more thrilled. And to Jalil's point, I mean, this kind of cycle that we have we have a great thing going. We have our services that is empowering us to do our own IP, and then it's just kind of like, this circle of creativity that's just been amazing. And I've probably spoken to more investors in the last 7 years than I ever thought I would. And so I'm excited the way we're doing. I don't think a lot of people realize that. That's why I'm so excited that we can get this out, because it can shine a little bit of light on the way that we're doing it. And it is essentially, we're self-funding and we have the power in our hands, and we don't have anybody telling us you have to do this. One of the reasons I think Pixar ultimately sold to Disney, right, was because Steve Jobs was concerned about what happens when we have a flop, right? What happens when that big movie that we did, for whatever reason, doesn't do well. And because that's how they were. They didn't have anything else supporting them, but here we do have something unique in that we have this whole cool creative side that's making us money and allowing us to do these projects that get us up out of bed in the day.
The engine is our Steve Jobs.
That's right.
Yeah.
Ben?
I echo those comments. I just am super excited to see where we go. And it's definitely a new frontier, no pun intended, but
you intended it.
Frontier. For the studio, and I'm super excited to be on the team at this time and to be able to help in any way I can. So yeah, we'll just keep going forward.
Awesome, guys. Well, listen, thanks so much. I think that Steamroller is obviously has gone through many transitions over the past 7 years. I'm super excited about the past 6 months since I've arrived, because I'm just watching more and more transitions happening. They're very, very exciting, and I'm just really excited for this project and really the future of IP development at Steamroller. So thank you very much, and love you guys.
Thank you, Aaron. Love you too.
All right.
Full steam ahead.
Aaron.